Yeah, it's always fun.
Hey, how are you? Good. How much is that? Did you? That would be it.
I wasn't sure whether I said amazing how quick that it's incredible. Anyway.
Well, no, that and two.
How good is that? We'll sit with you. Yeah. Cool. Okay, good. I think I'm done. We gotta be careful. Sorry. Okay. Good. Yeah, that's what we get. All right.
We're going to do our prayer, pledge, and four-way test. Okay. And then one not attached to.
Oh, I'm always attached to you. All right, apparently this is what they call hazing for us in the So, full disclosure, we don't, in the Quaker Church, they don't recognize birthright Quakerism anymore. If they did, I'd be a fourth generation birthright Quaker. With that being said, we typically don't pray aloud. Quakers, for those who don't know, we sit in silence and we listen for the light of that within. So typically, I don't pray aloud. So this is going to be a learning experience for all of us. So, and of course, on the other side of the coin, my mother is Catholic. So the first words was almost bless us, O Father, but no. Thank you, Lord, for today, for everybody coming together, this wonderful Rotary Club. I found so many new friendships, and I was going to save it for my happy dollar, but I had a wonderful time this weekend at the Rotary Leadership Institute. I felt like I was in the right place at the right time coming here, and I appreciate everyone, all the new friendships. Thank you for coming together. Bless this food. Amen. Little Rocky, like I said, don't typically pray out. And now the next part. Oh, the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And the four-way test. First. Second. Third. And fourth.
John is not here with us today. We do not have any visitors. And most of us are in mourning after last night's game, so we won't be able to.
Thank you.
Now that you hear me online too. For announcements, I just want to remind you that the high schools have started sending out requests for people to volunteer for senior exit interviews. I know that we will be sending out some sign up geniuses for that. Dave is not here, but if you are interested in a Rotary shirt, contact Dave Wolfer. His email address is in DAC-TV. So let him know if we're interested in a shirt. Don't forget to invite a friend to join us at our next meeting. We're always looking for new members. We are taking until February 10th the applications or nominations for Teacher of the Year. So if you are aware of a teacher that your child, your grandchild, maybe it's a family member that teaches in Boone County, get that nomination in by February 10th. And March 10th is our deadline for our scholarship applications. Again, Dave Wolfer is taking the lead on this. So if you are interested in helping to review the applications, let Dave know. Will actually mentioned the Rotary Leadership Institute. The first one was Saturday, January 28th. The next one is this Saturday. These are all on Zoom. You can register online at, whoops, sorry, that's okay. At RLI, there we go. Register online at rlihoa.org. This is a great training. I highly recommend it. Will already mentioned happy dollars too. Does anyone else have a happy dollar that you would like to donate to the club? Ian.
I'll go ahead and I'll this isn't the traditional like happy dollar type of thing, but I will be thankful for another successful Bengals season.
Yeah.
I'm not in the same good friend of mine and my friend Roger Patrick, he was born with the orange and black, but that's number one. Number two, a few of us Rotarians all go to the same church, and I was talking to another good friend of mine, Dwayne Proctor, on Sunday, and we were talking about how church on Sunday sets the tone for the week, and then Rotary on Monday. We feel a little out of sorts if we miss, so that was also a fun thing to hear. So, and then this maybe is not a happy dollar, but now after football season, pitchers and catchers work in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I hear something about the recent.
Yeah.
That's like $4 right there.
Let's see, it was Zoom last week and the meeting I was at before that, we didn't do the happy dollars. So in December, had some really good news in addition to the family. Tate, our eldest son, who's 24, he and Callie had a baby. So we are now grandparents. That is by far the most important of the news to share. The second is effective this Wednesday, I will be starting in a new role at Truist. I will be succeeding our current market president, Andy Hoffman, in that role. So
Congratulations.
Only up there.
All right, Will's got a happy dollar for us.
Like a new honor there that being able to do Memorial Live. You had a wonderful session. Our ethics conversation was wonderful. One of the, I mentioned Quakerism, one of the spikes of this inclusion, community, and equality, integrity, community, and equality, and everything that I found with the Rotary so far really seems to kind of. I did a little bit of research. I thought, I don't know if the Rotary has its roots in Quakerism. Not that I found, but even stuff like this during our meetings, we have what's called joys and concerns. It's a bad thing. So even the happy dollars, this is very Quakeresque. It makes me like when Ian said, kind of it's the week off to the right start. And a little bit of background is the day that I met Wayne, I had woke up and realized that I wanted to start doing get more involved in the community and maybe rejoin the metropolitan clubs where I was before the pandemic started. I didn't really get much out of that membership and happened to run into Wayne that night and then invited me to the Rotary and just everything kind of lined up and I'm so glad to be part of this and so glad to have been part of the RLI and really excited to we're going to be able to do it.
Roger.
Yeah, I spoke to Vinny Ray, the chaplain of the Bengals this morning, and if you know Vinny, if you're a diehard Bengals fan, he was their leading tackler for 3 years. He's a great enough character. And he said what he's really happy about. He said he's never seen such good character in a Bengals team as what they have. And anyway, I'm just thankful for people like Vinny Ray, and I really love the Bengals. I don't care if they lost, they gave it all they had.
Yeah. We can give a boo day. Yeah, that's right. All right, 1, 2, 3. There you go. Anyone else? No? All right. We have one birthday, February 4th, Pat Rafferty. He is not here. He's having a great time on vacation right now. Ways to support the club. Amazon Smile is actually going away starting in February. So that is no longer a way to support the club. But Kroger Community Rewards, if you want to sign up and look at Frederick for that, when you shop at Kroger, we get some money back from that. From your shopping experience. And then I want to turn this over to Don. Go. I lost Don.
Don's here.
Oh, there you go.
Hiding.
To introduce our guests.
You? You? I'll just do it this way. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to talk a little bit about Frankfurt. And before I do that, I want to hitchhike on Ian's comment about Rotary being a touchdown. I feel the same way. I start my week out on Sunday mornings in my own church. Mondays, Rotary, and Wednesdays, I've got a Bible study group that I meet with every week. And between those three things, those are, I don't know, if I miss one of those, it really kind of throws me off. So, Ian, I agree with you. There you are back there. Frankfurt. As most of you should know by now, next week we are not meeting here and we're not meeting on Monday, but we're going to meet on Tuesday. And Tuesday is going to be our trip to Frankfurt. Our own Florence Rotary member, Senator John Schickel, has set up a tour of the Capitol for us. For those of you who've been on the tours before, they're interesting, they're fun. And it's been a few years because of COVID. So bringing them back, I hope we get a good showing. We're going to have a fun time. It'll be an interesting time. We're going to leave here. We're going to get down to Frankfurt about 10 o'clock and start a tour of the Capitol.
It's gonna be our own private tour of the Capitol. Then we're gonna meet with, another of our club members, Michelle Keller, who is a, justice down there in the Kentucky Supreme Court, and she's gonna fill us in about the court. We're gonna be able to go into the court, we're gonna be able to go into the back chambers. That's pretty interesting too. And then, we're gonna be able to watch a session of the Senate from the gallery, and a couple other people in there that we may run into during the day. One of which is our former member, Shane Noem. He's going to talk to us about what the lobbyists do in Frankfurt. And so it'll be really interesting. I know it's hard to kind of take a whole day off, but I hope a lot of folks can make it, because, and bring your spouses, bring your kids, grandkids, whatever. This will be very enlightening for them. So I highly encourage everyone to come, and we'll figure out transportation. Okay, all that out of the way. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes of the meeting. Dave Jardon is actually, we think we knew each other from years ago when we were both at Delta, but we kind of reconnected a few months ago at a Kentucky Colonels charity event. And Dave and I started talking, and when Dave was telling me about some of his initiatives, I was like, wow, this is really something. And some of it I didn't even realize was a need, and Dave found the need and he's trying to fill it. So that's what he's going to tell us about today, along with some other things about Sheepdog, which is a national organization. So we've got Sheepdog, and we've got Dave's local Kentucky initiatives. So please welcome Dave Jardon.
You need to hear this, or can you all hear me, or?
Well, it's for the people who are on Zoom and for the live stream.
Okay.
But if you like, you can just put it
Yeah.
right up.
You're used to wearing a headset.
Yeah, that's, yeah. I coached soccer for 10 years, everybody can hear me. No. My name is Dave Jardon. Like I said, I really appreciate being able to talk to groups like this and let them know a little bit about Sheepdog Impact Assistance. We are a national nonprofit 501c3. We started 12 years ago. Have you ever heard of us before? Before I try to gauge, I apologize for any visual aids or any kind of notes or anything else. I kind of just like to gauge my audience and just let you know and be a little bit more interactive. But Sheepdog Impact Assistance is a national nonprofit of all veterans and first responders. And we help take care of veterans and first responders that may be suffering from PTSD or have other problems or need. We do this in 3 different ways. There's 3 pillars, and that's engage, assist, and empower. We engage by doing outdoor adventures. A lot of you know 22 veterans a day take their life every day in this country. What we try to do is engage them, get them up off the couch. It's one of our hashtags, get off the couch, to get them out of that dark path of isolation, and which ultimately leads to their final act, which is something we're trying to negate. So engagement, outdoor adventures, getting re-engaged with their fellows and comrades and camaraderie. And then we assist, and the way we assist them is basically, it's only been about a year or 2 partnership. Does anybody know who Gary Sinise is? Lieutenant Dan, of course, he has the Gary Sinise Foundation. One of his initiatives is the Avalon Initiative. When he first set up his organization, he dealt with the outer scars, the ones that everybody sees of all of our veterans coming home missing limbs and that. And then a few years into that, he realized that many more of our veterans suffer from the inner scars that we don't see, and the trauma and the PTSD. So he was looking for an organization that he could start this Avalon initiative with. And it just so happened that he found Boulder Crest, who was partnered with Sheepdog. And when he saw Sheepdog, he had one of his board of directors was a friend of one of our members here in Cincinnati. and they knew that organization, so they all kind of coalesced together. And now what we do is, with the Gary Sinise Foundation funding and Boulder Crest, we have an organization now called RCoFKy. And what this is a 7-day intense training that basically gives our first responders, because as a 30-year plus fireman, I can tell you I have seen more trauma in the field than I ever did as a C-130 pilot in the military. So it includes our military and our first responders, which is again who Sheepdog is. So it really worked out well together. But it's a 7-day program where we learn different coping skills with PTSD, but we now call it PTG. If you haven't heard that, that's where we are transitioning to, because it's not post-traumatic stress disorder anymore. It's post-traumatic growth. And it's along the lines of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And we are reprogramming, we're helping our men and women that are suffering from this to realize that over the decades, we've been told that you're damaged, you'll never get better, but we're going to help you through medication get to about this level. But we disregard it. We don't believe that. We think you can live a better life. And again, we do that with post-traumatic growth. We can help teach others how to grow and be better than actually we were through what happened to us. And it's not what's wrong with us, it's what happened to us. So with the Avalon Society and with Boulder Crest, we're teaching 7 men or 7 women at a time, a 1-week course of how to deal with this. And it's all evidence-based training, and it's doing amazing things for our people. I went through in June of this past year, and I thought I was in a really good place. Been married to the same woman, my first wife, for over 40 years now, and successful in Delta, chapter commander for the Greater Cincinnati chapter. So I thought I was pretty good, but I came home and I feel lighter than I did when I left. And my wife has saw a difference as well. So for what it did for me is great, but for what I see in my classmates who couldn't even make eye contact with us in the beginning, at the end, we're hugging and laughing in 1 week. It's amazing. And again, it's all non-medical based stuff. So it's great. We're not trying to medicate these men and women into oblivion. We're trying to help them. And the people that are teaching our path guides are just a little bit farther down that path. So I'm really big on Warrior Path and Boulder Crest. That's our second pillar. Our third one is one that spoke to my heart and why I got involved in Sheepdog to begin with, and that's empowering. We empower our people to continue to give back. Many of you know where the term sheepdog comes from or what it means, and it's not that we train dogs, because that's always the first question we get: what kind of dogs you train? We are the sheepdogs. We are the flock's protector. That's our veterans nationally and community and statewide, police, fire, EMS. So that's the sheepdog. So a lot of times when your shift is over, when you retire, you can take the dog out of the fight, but you can't take the fight out of the dog. And many of us have that innate desire to continue to serve and protect and take care of people that maybe can't for themselves. So when we do this through natural disaster relief throughout the United States, I was talking with Don a little bit. I was lucky enough to lead a 26-man and woman team in Eastern or Western Kentucky about 1.5 years ago when the tornado hit. We were back in Eastern Kentucky last July when the flood hit there. But we go all over. I've been, anytime there's a tornado, hurricane, flood, you name it, we usually have people that are going there. Every chapter has to have a disaster relief trailer. We have a very large one that carries all of our gear. When we go in, we're completely self-contained, to the fact that we bring our own sleeping bags and air mattresses and tents and generators. And then we go in once we are invited, because again, as firefighters and police and first responders, we realize that a lot of times volunteers are part of the problem, not the solution. So we will always go in and ask if they need help, and most of the time they're overwhelmed anyway. So the answer is yes. But then we go in and we do a lot of the heavy lifting. I mean, who better to wield a chainsaw or muck out a house than first responders? So I mean, that's sort of what we're trained to do. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. In the local chapter here in Cincinnati, we're the Greater Cincinnati chapter. So we cover Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. 8 almost 9 years ago now, when I started our team or chapter, we were the only ones in the greater Cincinnati area. So there was nobody in Ohio, Indiana, or Kentucky. So we had just sort of gathered everybody in. So trying to keep track of everybody's kind of hard because they were scattered from Cleveland down to Tennessee border and all the way past Indianapolis. But now we're starting to see teams. There's a Southwestern Indiana chapter. There's a Northern Ohio team. So we're starting to grow in this area as well. One of the biggest things that we are doing here is, again, trying to serve those that have not been served or maybe forgotten about, especially in Kentucky. Rural towns and counties are always sort of left out because there's not a lot of population. There's not a lot of interest, quite frankly. And a lot of times when we see Eastern Kentucky or whatever being flooded, it just never hits the news, national news, even sometimes not even the local news. For example, 3 years ago, we were in McGoffin County and nobody even really knew that they were underwater. But one of the things we're doing here, and that's one of the things I want to talk to you about, and I do want to take questions and everything before my time is done. But we decided to, whenever we have a natural disaster, any type, normally what happens is everybody wants to help. The communities want to help, the individuals want to help, businesses want to help, and all that help floods into the central command post, which almost always is the population center of the area. And it comes in, they figure out where it needs to go, and then the support goes out to about here and stops. The need, however, goes out to about here, and those are the people that never see anything. And I've seen this for over 30 years, like I said, as a firefighter. It's the way it is. So what we decide to do, and a lot of times what Sheepdog does, is we go where the need is, not where the cameras are. There are some other organizations that I won't mention that a lot of times they will go to wherever the news media is to get their publicity. And again, I get it, publicity is important, but we sort of go where the need is. And a lot of times that's in the more rural counties. So what we decided to do when we were in these rural counties, we started looking at the sheriff's departments and their cruisers and their vehicles. And we found that the vast majority of our counties, especially in rural county Kentucky, they didn't have an aspirin or a Band-Aid in their police cruisers. And it spoke to me personally as a supporter of our police. And then, of course, we went through a couple summers ago with the defund the police movement and everything else. And what these men and women do every day and put their lives on the line for us to keep us and our civilization intact, and the not even thanks they were getting, but the vilification that they were getting. So we wanted to help, especially in the counties that may not have ever seen help. So we came up with, I live in Verona, so the southern part of Boone County, but we have property down in Grant County, so I've got some close ties with Grant County. I sat down with the sheriff of Grant County and we developed an emergency medical trauma kit. And what we did was we said, many of these men and women are out by themselves in a cruiser 24 hours a day, especially at night. And they're covering 40 to 60 square mile county. And it's just them. Maybe there's another cruiser out there, but some of these counties, it's one person for the entire county. And a lot of times when there's a major incident or something happens, the police are there before even the fire or EMS get there. A lot of times they're the ones pulling it in. So if they're involved in an accident, or if they're involved in something, or if they get a laceration from metal or something on an accident, they have nowhere to go. There's not a McDonald's on the next corner because there's no corner for another 30 miles. And there was a very, very much of a safety need for them as well. So what we decided to do was do a two-prong attack. We have a day-to-day operation grouping of equipment, and then we have an emergency trauma pouch. The medical day-to-day stuff is what you see on the right side of the kit. And again, the kit is actually an ammo can by MTM, which is up in Dayton, Ohio. So they're local, and they do the injection molding for us. We just use their ammo can kit because it's watertight and it's pretty tough. But we got handy wipes, and we have hand sanitizer, ace bandages. You have to have duct tape, so there's a 5-foot roll of duct tape in there. Trauma shears, gauze, packing, gloves, everything that they need to clean themselves up and get themselves some medical attention. Light scale, but still to get them cleaned up, because they can't go just down the corner to do that. Then we decided that if there is a major shooting or stabbing, a major bleed that's life-threatening, how are we going to protect them? So what we did was we came up with the pouch, which is, I worked with, and it was a vacuum sealed pouch. I broke this one just to show people what's in there. But it's we developed that with North American Rescue, which is the largest distributor of medical supplies in the entire world. And what we came up with was we needed to be able to stop and stabilize a major bleed from a shooting or a stabbing or something of that. And we needed it to be an individual type of thing that they could do themselves and administer themselves with very little to no training. So what we have in there is a CAT, which is a combat applied tourniquet. I don't know how many of you were a Boy Scout. I was an Eagle Scout when I was younger. And when we went to our medical training, the last thing you ever want to do is put a tourniquet on. Because if you did, whatever was below that tourniquet was going to be lost. That is no longer true. One of the few good things that have come out of decades of warfare is that we have found out combat battlefield technology and medical training has increased. And we now know that you have about a 2-hour life cycle or sustainability for that limb without blood flow. So you can put on a tourniquet, stop the bleeding, stabilize the person or the victim. As long as you can get them to a trauma center, which most trauma centers now understand this and they can practice and work this, you're going to be able to save that limb. So what we wanted to do was stabilize that patient for a center of mass or a cord bleed or an extremity bleed. So the CAT will take care of any of the extremities. If there is a wounding or a stabbing to the core, you can't put the tourniquet on. So we have 2 vented hyphen chest seals. So for a sucking chest wound or anything like that, we can stabilize that person with those chest seals. Then we also have packing gauze. We have, because it's the world we live in, our gloves are fentanyl resistant. So that'll give another layer of protection to our officers because they're doing it's as bad here as it is anywhere, especially out in the rural areas, and our guys have to worry about that. And then there's a pressure bandage as well. So there's 2 ways of stopping bleeding for in the pouch. And then the little magic marker, basically there's a white patch that you put the time that you administer the tourniquet on the patient's extremity. You have to write that time down. So when it gets to the emergency room, they'll know what time. So that's a little bit about our biggest initiative right now. When we were asked, or when we told the sheriff departments that we were going to do this, I was a speaker back in Bowling Green in 2019. And we announced that we were going to do it for every cruiser in the state. Unfortunately, I thought that, how bad could it be? I know we have 120 counties, but 1 cruiser, 3 shifts, it's maybe 800. But no, that's not how it works. In Kentucky, every single deputy has his own vehicle. So we went from about 800 to about 2,300 crew kits now that we have to come up with. So it's going to be a multiple year thing. We were just blessed by the Kentucky Colonels that just last week we found out they were going to take the western sector of Kentucky and help us out with that. So through their Good Works program, and which is now I have a whole new set of problems, which is logistics and how do I get that many of these things put together, because my wife is kicking me out of the house because it looks like a medical clearinghouse right now. So we're moving our stuff to our barn down in Williamstown. We're going to have a kit packing session there, and then we're going to start just delivering all throughout the state. So that's a little bit about us. Like I said, in Kentucky here, we've been a chapter now for going on 9 years next month. And we do all kinds of things for our veterans and first responders. We put on a fishing tournament down in Lake Williamstown every year. It's always free to our veterans and first responders that want to fish with us. We put about 20, 25 boats out on the water every year. And there's prizes and the dinner is provided by, if anybody knows Guy Cummins from Smoking This and That Barbecue. If you don't, I highly recommend it. Roger can vouch for me on this one. But him and Mandy are amazing people, and they've been one of the biggest, longest sponsors, along with Master Provisions, since we started this to help us do good things. But they provide dinner the night before where the fishermen get to know their boat captains. And then the next morning we're out, we have breakfast provided, we have lunch provided by the marina down there. And these guys get just a great way to get out and again, get off the couch and become more engaged again. So we do that. We do Carry the Load, which is Memorial Day. There's huge hikes that go throughout the entire country. I encourage you to look up on the web, Carry the Load. We're sponsor or partner with them. But it's basically a Navy SEAL came back in 2003 and realized that Memorial Day no longer is for fallen brothers and sisters on the battlefield. It's for beer and burgers in the backyard. And he said, this isn't what it's supposed to be. So he put on a rucksack and put a pound of weight for every brother and sister he lost on the battlefield and started hiking. 22 and a half hours later, he ended up in Houston and or Dallas. I think it was Dallas, I'm sorry. And now that has transitioned to a huge national nonprofit that this is what they do. There's 4 different legs now. We're in the Midwestern leg, and our leg starts in Minneapolis and ends in Houston or Dallas, I'm sorry, on Memorial Day. And it's a continuous leg. They hike, fight, or they do take a van to get them to the next biggest city. But we'll do a leg around the middle of March. It'll start over in Cincinnati at the Kroger parking lot. We'll walk down over the Rogan Bridge, and we'll end up in the Station 1 for Covington Fire Department. So it's beautiful. It starts in Ohio and ends in Kentucky, so it's perfect for our group. Anybody that wants to come talk or walk with us, feel free. I did leave cards and some flyers on the table for you to just get an idea of who we are and what we do. But that's another big thing that we do. We also work with the people down at down in Williamstown at the National Veterans Cemetery. We plant the flags, we plant the wreaths, and we work with them on Christmas and Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Super organization down there. If you've never been down there, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And I feel very proud to know that that's probably where I'll end up at the end of my term of watch. But it's an amazing place. If you haven't been there, please go. So I'm doing pretty good. How about questions? And if there's anything else, I'll talk to you, but I'd love to answer questions from anybody that may have. Yes, sir.
If you thought about expanding the people that you're serving, now that I'm seeing this, a lot of people that were in ICU COVID and watched numerous hundreds of people die through COVID, they're coming out now and having PSTD. And is that some people you might be interested in getting involved? I mean, whether it be the nurses, docs, RT, whatever it might be.
We actually, a quick answer is not really. Just because Mission Creek, it can start to become so large. We are focused primarily on our veterans and first responders. Just to give you a quick idea, the way our organization works, you can be a member or you can be a volunteer. A member is anybody that's come up through the ranks of police, fire, EMS, or veterans. And a volunteer is anybody that has the heart of a sheepdog. You just want to serve, protect, and help. The neat thing about our chapter is we have as many volunteers as we have members. We have as many men as we have women. And we have, in some families, mine included, we have over three generations of sheepdogs. My 5-year-old granddaughter has been in a sheepdog onesie since she was old enough to have a onesie. And I've got a picture of her when she was a year and a half, 2 years old, was the first flag that she planted on a veteran's grave. So she is being raised right. Because if we don't raise our children the right way, I don't know who will anymore. So for us, it really makes me feel good. Everything we do is family oriented. There's always kids at our meetings. Whenever we go to whatever organization or whatever event that we are doing, there's always kids there. And so it's a family event more than anything else. But that's the way we're going to keep it as long as we, that's. Yes, sir.
I love the concept that you're moving away from ESD.
Yes, sir.
Because that's like a stigma.
It is.
And that's not right. I mean, that's the growth idea. And two, you said you're from Verona. We have kind of an organization associated with us, New Day Ranch.
I know right where it's at. Right about there.
So are they kind of might be interested in what you do? They have a facility much like this room with a catering kitchen and have a great fishing lake, and they have therapeutic horse riding is their thing, mainly with children, but they talk about having a program for first responders. I don't know that they put that together, but it's something they talk about. So I would just,
I drive by that every day, and every day I say,
you need to go talk.
sir,
I'll give you the, information.
well, I would, yeah, I would love to talk to you after we're done, but yeah, I see it all the time. I get, and the thing is, at Warriors Path, one of the days is at a therapeutic riding stable. So there's something about the connection with a horse. I don't know what it is, but it's there. And that's one of the days that we do out of 7 that we're there. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. Just to let you know, Warriors Path, a little bit more about that because it is so important. PATH is PATTH. It's progressive and, oh my gosh, we started this without, it's, hold on a second. Progressive and, progressive alternate training for healing heroes, PATHH. But what it is again, they don't use the standard medications that the VA and the government has been giving our warriors for all these generations. It's all based on different warrior groupings throughout the centuries. For instance, they'll teach you what they have used to cope with, like the Hindus and the Buddhist transcendental meditation. So their warrior path or their class used that. The ancient Greeks used the labyrinth, and their nation state citizen warriors would go into the labyrinth with holding their chisels or their crops or their scythes or whatever their tools of their jobs were. And when they went into the center, their armor would be waiting for them. They would put the armor on, leave their tools, and they would come out. And when they came back from battle, they would do the same thing in reverse. And it's all part of that mindset of separating the two. We learned archery, Bushido, the way of the bow from the Japanese warrior class. So there's so many different things that have worked over the centuries to help our warriors and our first responders de-stress or whatever term you want to give to that. So it's very, very intriguing and very historical, and it's an amazing organization that we're working with. But any other questions? Yes, sir.
So my son, who I just mentioned, recently became a dad. He's a paramedic here, City of Florence, and he talks a lot about how stressful it can be when it comes to kind of within those organizations, police, fire. You're there to support, but what does the usual kind of day-to-day support resources look like for those folks that you have to kind of supplement?
Are you talking about sheepdog, or are you talking about what's available?
In general, what is usually the first line that they've done by the time they get the sheepdog?
Well, I'll talk in general just to give you an idea of what he's probably. And the quick answer is it depends. Just a little bit about myself, just to give you a frame of reference. I was a 1983 Air Force Academy grad. I went into C-130s. I did special ops. I was an instructor pilot for 7.5 years active duty. When I came out, or while I was in as a second lieutenant, I joined the fire department down the street because we were in North Carolina and knew nobody in that area. So we said, how do we get involved in the community? How do we meet people? How do we give back? So I started my, that was 33 years ago. I started as a volunteer firefighter and then served in North Carolina 2 stations, and I was assistant chief of Union and assistant chief of the Verona fire departments when I finally said, I'm the oldest guy here, it's time for me to go. I can't do what I used to do, and I hate admitting it, but it's a young man's sport. And but so that's a little bit about me. So I can speak to the first responder. And like I said, we see more trauma in the first responder ranks than some people do when they're in their military. Now, not the ground pounders, but for sure, Air Force guy. I just flew and dropped my guys out the back and went on my merry way. When there is a horrific accident, and I've been part of too many of them, especially with I-71, Verona, that's probably one of the deadliest areas of 71 as we go right through Verona. I don't know why, but that's where we have so many fatalities. There is a thing called critical incident response. It has to be activated by the chief, and normally more and more chiefs now are getting used to that it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. That's what they teach you in PATH. It's we're tough, but that is sort of being pushed aside because now we realize being tough is one thing, but a lot of times that ends up with somebody leaving the department or leaving the force, and then we lose more people in the first responder ranks every year to suicide than we do line of duty death. So it is a very real problem in our ranks as well. So if he calls up the critical incident response team, they will come in and do a debriefing, and then they'll do a defusing. The defusing comes first. It's usually if they're good, they're waiting for you when you get back. And then the debriefing comes 2 days later. It's closed door sessions, no cell phones, no nothing. It's all confidential. It's and I can speak to this because I was a peer counselor for Delta's critical incident response team for about 8 years. You'll have 3 peers that are going to be firefighters, EMTs, police, and you'll have 1 mental health professional. And we will go through 7 steps, and people they will have to talk. You're not just going to be able to sit and it's a circle. It's a circular firing squad. We're all going to be shooting at each other, but we're going to be telling what happened, what we saw, and what we felt, and everything else. And I can tell you, being on both sides, the chair of the counselor, the peer, and being one of the people that went through it, it's amazing. And the one I remember was many, many years ago. It still is. I've got 6 scars in my heart that I'll always carry with me for the 6 co-ed college girls that we lost. There was a trooper. He was 6 months with the force. And in those 6 months, he had 2 teachers burned to death in a T-bone tractor trailer dump truck accident that were killed instantly. And then he was on our incident where 6 college co-eds were just trying to go home for spring break, and they were all killed instantly. When he came in that door, he wouldn't make eye contact with anybody. He was looking down. And when he left 4 hours later, when we were done at 2 a.m, because there is no time, you're going to go until you're done. And we don't know when we start when that's going to be. But when he left, he hugged or shook hands with every single person in that room. He saved his life. I know he did to this day. He would have been gone. So there is that out there. That is probably, I don't know if that's the only one, but that's the best one that I know. And they're everywhere now. There are more of them out there than there used to be. So if he has been part of that and hasn't received help, he needs to. Talking is amazing. It's amazing what just talking will do and what it will release. And there's study after study that shows that. But he can either start looking up critical incident response teams or CERT teams, or they call them CHIRP teams. There's all kinds of names, but that's the basic gist. Find out where the closest one is so that they can have that on speed dial, because it's not a matter of if, but when it's going to happen to him or to anybody in the field or that organization he's working with. To answer your question? No, that's all. Perfect. Great. Anybody else? Thank you. Sure.
It's just been impressed with the volunteer spirit, and we do have a true partner.
Right. For those of you who don't know Roger, I'm gonna speak about Roger because one of the things we do is Thanksgiving and Christmas outreaches, and we look for sheepdog families in need. And over the years, we've spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars trying to get food and everything to those people. And then through Guy, we met Roger, and it's amazing the amount of people that now we can help because you make it so much more affordable for us. And it's truly a blessing to be partnered with you and your organization. The work that he does in Master Provisions it's life-saving. So thank you. It is a perfect relationship, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Just for the other comment, and put this on your table. You should all have one of these sitting in the center of the table. Don gave a commercial earlier about going to the Frankfurt trip, which is replacing our meeting next week. So remember, we won't be here on Monday, but to register, please scan this, or there is an email that you should have received that has the link in it. Anything else for the good of the group? Dwayne?
Good news for the club. I received an email from District Governor SEMA. Our district governor from 25 to 26, there were no challenges. And Greg Palmer will be our district governor.
Don?
Just one other thing about the trip. Try to let us know as soon as possible. We're gonna need names for Frankfurt, and we're gonna need numbers. So the sooner we can get all that together, the better. I'm not gonna set a deadline, but because I want people to come if they can at the last minute to come. But if you know you're gonna come to the place.
All right. Jamie, did you have something? No, oh, okay. All right, then, we are dismissed. Thank you.